Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio at 11 a.m., nourishing our souls. And here we are again on our Saturdays, Health and Spirituality at Kardec Radio. That's how Kardec Radio began 10 years ago. Yes, every Saturday. There we were. And here we are again. We are beginning a new series every Saturday, where we're going to bring to you people who are thinkers, authors, scholars, who talk about what we want to learn. And today, it's about reincarnation, it's about memories, it's about past life regression. Many people have a question. Should I engage in getting to know who I was in a previous life? Kardec addressed this question. Yes, if you go to the Spirit's book when it was published in 1857, Allan Kardec talks to us about getting to know of our previous lives. And forgetfulness of the past is a blessing. Later in the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, he's going to tell us that it's good to forget, because at the point of our evolution, if we remember everything, we're probably going to have a hard time forgiving others, but mostly forgiving ourselves. But we can't help it. There are times in which we are allowed to open that veil of the past, and we can see through it a little bit of who we've been and who we were in previous lives, and other people as well. Those occasions are truly therapeutic if we understand the message. There are times in which we are going to need the help of a skillful therapist to go through those memories and learn how to become one and less fragmented. Many of us have not fully reincarnated. We're still living past portions of ourselves until one day we get to know who we are and we become more one with ourselves. So we have so much to discuss today. And we brought, the last time we interviewed her, we were not here on this screen. We were only radio, only audio. Now, finally, thanks to technology, we can both hear in the app at Kardec Radio, because you can hear it in the app at Kardec Radio. Kardec Radio has an app. You go there, click on it, and you're going to hear what we're doing here. And if you want, we can have all these different platforms in the app. You see, we're going to be connecting to all the other platforms here at Kardec Radio. So we have the Facebook page, the Twitter page, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, the SoundCloud, where we have more than 6,000 podcasts for you, different hosts. And there we're going to get to know more. Carol Bowman, she's here with us. What a joy to begin this new year, a needed topic for much healing. Past life regression, previous lives, memories in children, and much more. It's about the continuity of life. You want to know more? I want to know more. But go to her website before I bring her here. Go to carolbowman.com and you're going to see, yes, she is an internationally known author, lecturer, counselor, past life regression therapist, and she is a pioneer in the reincarnation study. She came along with Dr. Stevenson and many other people who were bringing this awareness to us. She wrote books that are now in many different languages. Children's Past Lives, Return from Heaven, And she has been practicing as a past life regression therapist for more than 30 years. She has a lot to teach to us. And it's a joy because she's become a friend of ours here at Kardec Radio in the Spiritist community. Here she is, our dear Carol Bowman. Hi, Carol. How have you been?
Let me get my camera on here.
It's good.
An angle. It's kind of
Beautiful.
interesting. All right. Hi. After all little technical difficulty, we're here thanks to my husband, who is the tech person in the family.
Yes.
So it's nice to see you again. It's been a long time.
I know. It's great to see you and to be with you. I feel it's like a cozy space that we are here with you. It's great.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
And Carol, let's remember people, for those who are coming now. Remember the times in which you came to Spiritist events. You were the guest speaker, the keynote speaker at our national symposium in 2009 in Boston. What a memorable day for us. Can't forget, right?
Yeah, it was great. And my husband and I still talk about the conference in Spain in 2010 because I've never gotten so many hugs in my life. I felt so loved by the community. It was a great experience.
Yeah, Carlos is here. He's saying hi.
Hi.
Yes, and he's also laughing because it's so true. People loved you. It was the International Spiritist meeting in 2010 in Spain, and you were there also to launch one of your books that were translated into Spanish.
Right. That's right.
Right?
I think so.
And
Sounds familiar.
Right? So many things.
Yeah.
But Carol, since we are in this pandemic, before we go to the very topics of your expertise, like how have you been experiencing this pandemic? Because everybody wants to know.
Yeah, well, sharing the experiences. Fortunately, we were at the point where we don't have young kids in the house. Our kids are long grown. So it was easier for us. We had to make some radical changes in our lives. Steve couldn't do the work that he was doing before, and I couldn't see clients in person. And I've always done it in person. So it took me about 6 months to even try Zoom to see if it worked, because there's such an energetic connection when you do this work. But the Zoom, the electronic medium, works really well. I was shocked. Wow. So I was able to convert my sessions so I could get back to work rather than in person. And I'm still doing remote sessions, which has really broadened my reach across the globe. Yeah. I can work with anyone, anywhere. They don't have to come to my office in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So it's been really amazing in that way. But it's very hard because we haven't been able to see our kids. My son is living in Prague now, and I don't know when we'll be able to visit him. Oh, so wow. I think as far as relatively speaking, we're doing really well because we're at this stage in our lives where it's okay. We can isolate. It's not fun, but we can do it. So, it's much more difficult for people with young children and in other circumstances. So I think it's tough. It's pointing to so many other problems in the world and our planet. Yeah. So there's a lot to take in. It's a big shift.
It is. Talking about shift and awareness of that needed shift. So many people are struggling, as you said, and they don't know what to do with their struggle. So sometimes people end their marriages or they move somewhere else, and some people even abandon their families because they're like, I've heard so many stories of people going to extreme decisions. But there is always a middle ground, like where people can find help before they make those big decisions. And you, as a past life regression therapist, have a lot to share with us in that regard. How much therapy per se can be helpful What would you say to those people, Carol?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't do marriage counseling, but I think that would be a big part of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because all of our distractions have been taken away. And here we are. Well, I've been with my husband in the house for 24/7 for the past 25 years. We've both been working from home. So it's not a big shift for us.
Mm.
But all the distractions going out, going to concerts, restaurants, the things that we could enjoy together have been, what can we do now? So it's bringing up a lot of issues that we were distracted from before. And I think it's difficult if you don't have a strong foundation in your relationship. There's inevitable estrangement or separation. And I think some more standard counseling would help. I don't know whether past life therapy helps in that case. I think it's more, how do we adjust our behaviors to cope with this?
Yeah.
And control our emotions too. Just stay cool.
Yes.
And, when you go outside, take a walk, do things for your health, exercise, I think is really important. And as we were talking about before yesterday, diet and exercise are essential, for our immune systems, but also for our emotional beings.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree. And now, you have been working in the field of past life regression for so long.
Yeah.
But you became renowned first and foremost because of your discoveries on the healing aspects of some spontaneous ways that children could remember previous lives. We know in America, it's not as talked about as in India, for example, where reincarnation is just like, oh yeah, people believe in reincarnation very naturally. Or in spiritist communities or countries like Brazil, you would talk about this and it would be more easily accepted. But in the US at first, how was the level of acceptance of people in that regard?
Well, I think we're swimming upstream with this because there is so much resistance because it's not part of our cultural religious beliefs. Well, actually it is for some, but not everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a struggle. And I find that, I've been plugging away. And I think when my books first came out, they were very well received, but it's been almost 25 years now. And there are other books coming out with cases and with other research, and mostly from a scientific point of view, trying to verify the memories. And the big problem with the Western cases is that when Dr. Ian Stevenson started this research in the early 60s, he found that the best cases were in Asian cultures or in cultures where they believe in reincarnation. And it's interesting because those children in cultures in which the cultural belief, the parental belief leans towards reincarnation, the memories are much more detailed. It's the mass consciousness is reaching the child and saying, okay, it's a safe climate for you to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the West, it's not. And I think a lot of kids pick up on that because when I work with my adult clients, they often say, well, I had memories as a child, but I knew it wasn't safe to talk about them. So they end up doing the therapy they could have done when they were children as adults. And I think that's quite often true, that if we have memories as a child that are not addressed, we can carry the emotions or even the physical symptoms into adulthood.
Yes.
So it's been a hard, pushing forward, but there's a lot more awareness now than there was 30 years ago. And with the other people doing the research, they're getting more cases, and cases are coming to light, and people are not as reluctant to talk about them. But still, there needs to be a lot of education as to what these memories really are. It's not about verifying every statement a child makes or trying to figure out who the child was. That's secondary to why is this coming up in the child? What do they need from us as adults to help them understand what's going on? And that's really where my work diverges from the other people in the field at this point, except some colleagues who do the therapy work. And there are a few around the world, but not enough, in my opinion. So that's been the challenge, to reach as many people as possible. And I think there are a lot of people out there. Well, I see it every day when people comment on a YouTube video or I get emails that they have been afraid to talk about this in the West because of ostracism, fear of ostracism or condemnation from the family. I get a lot of comments on my YouTube lecture about being possessed by demons.
Yeah.
It gets very extreme as when you bring it out to the general public, you're going to get a lot of strange,
I know,
resistant, fearful comments.
Yes, I know. I come from a 5-generation Spiritist family in Brazil, and we were raised in a very Catholic country because Brazil is very Catholic, and studying Catholic schools, we had to learn how to believe what we believe and be very careful about what we say. Until I moved to the US, and that's funny because when I moved here, after I started the Spiritist works in the US, some colleagues at the university, former teachers and colleagues, we didn't speak about this until we connected through social media, and they're like, oh, you're Spiritist. I'm a Spiritist too. And then people are more comfortable. But, what to do with those memories? The main question is this, and I agree with you, Carol, that it's not important only to find out whether it's true or false, but the mind is the mind. If it's bringing any content, what do we do with it? How do we achieve a certain form of healing if it's causing some form of distress or confusion? So would you like to share a case with us in which we can approach from a therapeutic perspective the memories of previous lives and successfully achieve a state of wellness?
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, Vanessa, and I'll speak to the general and then throw in a few cases so you can understand how it operates. I came to this because of my own children. I didn't know anything about children's past life memories at the time. I knew something about my own memories, and I had done a past life regression with a therapist who helped me cure a chronic lung condition I had for years in one session. So, yeah, it was extremely powerful, but I didn't know children could have memories. And when my children both expressed phobias that I didn't understand, I was lucky enough to have some guidance with that through the therapist I had initially worked with. And it turned out that just by engaging, I'll talk about my son, for example, engaging him by asking him what he saw when he heard the loud sounds that frightened him. That was the phobia. He was extremely frightened of loud booming sounds. When we asked him, he started recounting the story of being an adult soldier on a battlefield. And I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. I've talked about it so often, and hopefully some people have read about this or heard about it. But he had this phobia, and he had a chronic eczema on his wrist. And when he recounted his story about being this adult on a battlefield, he said he was shot in that wrist. And it was interesting because his eczema had not responded to any medical treatment at all. And he was 5 at this point, so he had had the eczema since he was a baby. So after allowing him to talk about it and not judging, but offering support and understanding, openness, after that short recounting about 10 or 15 minutes, his fear went away, as did his eczema. So that absolutely fascinated me. I didn't know children could have memories. And a couple years after I started doing my own research, I started studying Dr. Ian Stevenson's work. I hadn't heard about him until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about the spontaneous memories. And what I was finding with the cases I was collecting were the same patterns that Stevenson found. Kids make statements, they can have behaviors relating to a previous life, they can even have physical conditions relating to past life trauma. Most of these memories that Stevenson was finding were of children who remembered how they died, and most of them were traumatic deaths. And Stevenson found that in about 35% of the cases, children had phobias relating to the way they died. Are you getting an echo or feedback from
No.
my side? Oh, okay, good.
Are you?
A little bit, but as long as it's coming through clearly to you. So Stevenson provided a foundation for me as a launching off point to investigate this healing aspect of the memories, which he would not talk about. When in my discussions with him, he refused to talk about it. He dismissed past life therapy. He dismissed adults having spontaneous memories, which was surprising to me. So, yeah. And even my own experience with the healing, he dismissed that.
Oh.
So and that was my experience. And it was very clear I had the memory since childhood. So that made me more determined to look at the healing aspects of these memories. And what I found generally is what's most important is not to shut a child down. Okay. Don't dismiss it. Even if you're not sure if it's a real memory or not, encourage them to express what they need to express. Don't make a big deal about it, but just ask open-ended questions. You were a soldier? Yeah, I was a soldier. Well, what happened? And it's important for us to listen very selectively, discerningly, as these children talk about the memories, to figure out, are they troubled? Or is it a benign memory? If there's a benign memory, just let them talk about it and no worries. But if a child is having nightmares relating to this, or has a phobia, or gets depressed, or has some psychosomatic pain relating to the memory, which surfaces quite often with the statements. When children start talking about it at like 2 or 3, sometimes when the memory surfaces, when they talk about it, the physical symptoms from a traumatic death, for example, come back. So it's important to discern if the child is troubled or not. And if they are, offer assurances that whatever they need to hear, now you're safe, you're now in a healthy body. And this sounds really odd at first glance because it doesn't make sense that can be healing for the child. But actually, I think you said in your lead-in, a lot of children don't know they have made a transition into another life. They're still on this continuum of consciousness. And and I often say this, is that if one foot is stuck in the past life and they really don't know the difference between present reality and the past. And a lot of times this shows up the way the children express their memories in the first person in the present tense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the clue that they really haven't separated in their consciousness. They don't know they have made the transition. So let them talk about it. Let them express any emotions, even if it's troubling for you as a parent or an adult to listen to it. They might even have a catharsis where they just start crying their eyes out, hysterically or calmly, or just appear very sad, but they have to just let it out. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there's not going to be too much resolution, but there can be some, and sometimes there is spontaneous resolution, which I'll talk about in a moment, spontaneous healing. But you have to let them know in very simple language that whatever happened was before. You're now safe in a new body. And that seems to work like a charm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Wow.
We're talking to 2 and 3-year-olds who are still so close to that experience, without all the conditioning that happens as we get older. And it's interesting because the spontaneous memories tend to fade around the ages of 5 to 7.
Uh-huh.
As a child becomes more focused on the outer world. There are a lot of developmental things that are happening in the brain, which you would know about more than I would with children. And so we have this narrow window to address these memories, these spontaneous memories when the children are young. While they're talking about it, it's still current with them. They're still with a foot in both worlds.
Exactly.
So, yeah, but I was amazed at how simple it can be with a lot of children to help them with the transition if they tell you what's going on.
Mm.
But even if they don't, sometimes you can talk to them as they're falling asleep. If you detect there's something going on and it's not from this life, you can talk to them in very simple terms and say, I'm using an example, which if we have time to talk about, of same family cases. And I know that the Spiritist community are well aware that we can reincarnate in the same family.
Yes.
It's news for most Westerners, though, but
We're getting there.
yeah, slowly getting there. And your efforts are appreciated greatly, too, because,
But Carol, you're giving us so many therapeutic tools, but since childhood is so precious, it's such an important and critical period of our lives. And especially the first years of life, as you said, and it's a reality. There's so much happening in the brain. In the first 3 years, we see an immense growth in our nervous system to the point that by the third year, we are reaching like 80% of the size of an adult brain. So much is happening those very first years of life. And yet there are so many emotions. But what I see, and I would like to confirm with you, is that parents aren't usually prepared to listen.
Right.
Because they disregard. I remember when Virginia was a baby, and when she was like 1, I took her to the mall, and there was like a playground area there, and then she saw that Virginia was speaking in words with me, this other lady with her daughter. She approached me. Does she speak? I said, yeah, she's speaking something.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, but how come? What do you do? I talk to her and I listen to her. Do you talk to your child? No, I don't. Because they're not able to. Well, they won't be able to if you don't listen to them, if you don't talk to them. So I would like to talk to you because do you see that the hardships are mostly on the parent side? Because children will express things if we're just willing to understand, to observe. And that's where probably we fall short.
And that's why education is so important. That's why my method is to, in the way I write, the way I present this material is very friendly in that I'm speaking one parent to another and saying, look, this is a normal phenomenon. It's a natural phenomenon. Just listen.
Mm-hmm.
Don't dismiss it. But if they don't even know it's possible, they will dismiss it, especially if it's a benign memory. It sounds just like, oh, I had a farm when I was big and we had horses and I had 5 children. Well, in that statement, you could say that's a weird thing to say, but dismiss it as, well, it's just something that a child saw on television or heard or imagination. But it's those experiences that throw people off balance when you hear your child talking about when I died. And that's where the education comes in, because you have to know this is natural. It's more harmful not to talk about it with a child in some ways. And if you can show that you're not afraid of it, which is difficult at first because I think most parents go into shock when they hear that. And if you can collect yourself, breathe, and listen and try to discern what they're saying, it's a great opportunity for you as a parent and for the child. You can help the child heal the soul from the past life experience if they need help in making that transition fully into the present. So I think education of parents is the key. I don't see any other way to do it. And in some ways, the media has been very helpful when they cover these cases in a good way, in a balanced way, not throwing in the skeptic who's never read any Stevenson or doesn't know the material. You can poke holes in any individual case as a skeptic. But if you look at the aggregate, there are now, thanks to Stevenson, thousands of published cases.
Yeah.
And I've been doing these interviews for years, so I'm trying to reach a lot of people, and the books are out and other people are writing books now. So it's there, but there's such a resistance in this culture. And that's the biggest impediment, for both the parents and the children. And of course, in this culture, a lot of people, it's not in the Bible, it's bad. It's not normal for the child, so they shut it down. So, but those people are really never going to listen unless it happens to them. But even with them, they probably find alternative explanations, there has to be some other explanation to this. But then they get desperate enough, they can do a Google search now.
Yeah.
Which, when I first started, there wasn't Google.
No, not at all.
Email, there wasn't anything.
And I think that's why we need more of you. And as many people are here saying how important it is, your work. And I agree. Thank you, Daisy Gallen.
That's so nice. Thank you.
For your important work. It's pioneering and so important for our society. We need more scholars like you. And I see many people like this friend here, Lulimir from France, saying how people in France are resistant too, though you go to Kardec's tomb and then boom, it's a success. I remember being there at Père Lachaise Cemetery. Kardec's tomb is really popular.
I've been there.
You've been there, right?
Yeah. Yes. In 2010, after I did the Boston Symposium, we went to Paris and we went to Kardec's tomb and people were laying hands.
Yes.
And, it was, whoa, what is this energy over here in Père Lachaise? Yeah.
So it's interesting. We need more of you telling people how natural this is, because as far as I have been studying and reading, I see it so natural that people have I'm not talking only about children, mostly children, it's easier there, but even for adults, when they perceive a certain stimulus and they have that feeling of deja vu, or that feeling that they've been there, they have familiarity with certain things that they've never experienced in this life, and they say, I think I've been here before. I think I know you from some other time. We've just met. So it's so natural, but we dismiss so much. That probably is one of the reasons why we are still so messed up, because we're dismissing parts of us, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's even in the past life therapy with adults, that's my main gig. That's how I earn a living, through working with adults. I've done the children's work, never charged for counseling, because I feel it's so important and it's easy for me to do, and parents really need it. And I don't know of anybody else who will do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is important. I lost that train of thought, but I know what I wanted to say. With the adult clients, we find that when we look at the main patterns in our lives, emotional patterns like, fear of abandonment, or, pick any number of the universal themes we all share, the very charged, the ones that trigger us the most are not new, usually. So when we focus on that and go back into a relevant past life by sinking into those feelings, really expanding on those feelings, it's the missing piece in the big puzzle of who we are. Where does our personality originate in previous, the seeds are planted before we come. There is nature, nurture, there's inherited family trauma, there's all of that, but there's also this stream from our previous lives through reincarnation. So when we hit a relevant past life, it's like, and this happened with me, all the pieces of the puzzle just pop into place. Of course, that's why I had those nightmares as a child. Of course, that's why I had that phobia. Of course, that's why I landed into the family that I did. It's like the pattern continued, and, we'll find somebody in their family line, a resonant energy. It's all energy. So we meet this conjunction of the familial and the past life. It's this big bundle of triggers. So it's all there, and it's amazing when you realize that we're so much more than what happened in childhood. We're so much more than we can comprehend.
Yes.
But we have to heal this.
Yes.
And it's not just about what happened when you were 3. And in fact, what I like about working with clients too, and we all attribute everything to our parents, like, now that you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about.
I know.
But it goes beyond that. And I think you can start forgiving your parents for just being the people they were, or playing out certain roles for us to learn.
Yes.
We bring in our own, and we have to take responsibility, or just, it's not even responsibility. It's just understanding that it's nothing they did. This is what I've come to heal, and maybe they triggered it again. So it's very profound. It's not just the one life paradigm doesn't explain anything, in my opinion.
Like stopping the victimization feeling, right?
Yes.
We're not victims. We are
Yes.
here, and we attracted this situation for some reason that we need. So it's a very optimistic approach, and that's why I love it, because
I do too.
there's always something great. But Carol, unfortunately, you have to talk about cases in which those memories can surface and not easily bring healing, because there is a form of resistance. There is a form of I don't want to change. So there are cases, for example, Dr. Stevenson, cases that he published. I will never forget this case about Rani Saxena in India. She was born a girl, but she recalls when she was a lawyer in a previous life, a man who was very disrespectful to women. And she says, I know I reincarnated to be a woman, to respect women, being a woman. And later she actually got married and had her own children, etc. So it seems in that case, that she found the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
And she surrendered to the proposal of this life. But what do you think about cases in which people, for whatever circumstance, they don't accept the new proposal or the healing elements of this life?
I think then you can get stuck in patterns.
I
don't, unless you have an epiphany or religious experience or do some really good therapy, but there is spontaneous healing too. Even somebody's in jail, incarcerated for murdering someone, they can reach a level of repentance or realize that their path was off, that was not the best thing to do with their life. And they can change, but it involves a lot of forgiveness of others and in themselves too. That can happen. You hear about that happening. It can be a spontaneous healing. But there is this process now which people can participate in that helps them, maybe saves them a few lifetimes of learning, in a sense.
Mhm.
We can get a handle on it and understand we're so much more. And these patterns can lose their charge, especially during past life therapy. The whole point is to let go, to understand, get context, and release. Realize, oh, okay, so that happened before. That was just an experience. But being your soul's consciousness, observing that is very powerful. And what happens in a typical session, we're kind of veering off into adult memories, but that's fine. You go through the past life death. You lead up to it, or at some point you go through the death. You can look back at the life you lived, and through this objectivity, it's almost like being in I describe it as a virtual near-death experience. When you're really in an altered state within an altered state, and for moments, minutes, you're in that state of consciousness where you realize, I'm so sorry.
People already calling you.
You know what? Yeah, we left. Sorry about that.
No, people already calling you saying, I need help too.
You know what it was? Steve was up here fixing the
Yeah.
the Chrome and left the phone. Okay, sorry about that. That's a big no-no in interviews. But there's so many ways now we can heal. And past life therapy is, in my opinion, is extremely powerful. And I don't know of any other therapy where you can be in that state where you realize you're really a consciousness outside of a body and part of this greater consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Call it God, call it, Christ consciousness, cosmic consciousness. We can get to those levels spontaneously, but we can also get to them through meditation or past life therapy or prayer. There are a lot of different ways to get there.
Naturally, but
yeah,
we want to share with people, and I want to ask you, there are moments in which the best way to go is to have a skillful therapist, because I've seen cases in which people get to know of the information around the corner somewhere. I was this, and then they are stuck. Instead of moving forward, letting go, they don't know what to do with the content. And I remember in Brazil talking to some past life regression therapists, they would say, if you don't have a skillful therapist, you may just miss the boat.
I think that's true. And with the readings too, when people get a past life reading, that's not really, it might give you some insight, but it's not going to move any energy. It's not really going to move this pattern. When people call me and say, well, I had a past life reading with this psychic who told me, I said, yeah, we'll leave it at the door when we do a session.
Yes.
It's not really that helpful. So, it's really about moving that energy. And, 99% of the work I do with adults is past life trauma, where they die traumatically, in war, in, a million different ways. But everybody's stories are different. Everybody has a different history, although we do share these universal patterns. I think I always say being on planet Earth we're driven by thoughts and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of drive the program, and we need to heal them.
Yes, that's why we are here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, ultimately, what are we doing here? I'm not sure anymore. I don't think my brain can comprehend exactly why we're here. But I know we need to heal, and I know we need to let go of certain things and, try to be better people. I think all the world's religions, just love, be kind, do unto others. It's true.
Yeah, open your heart. And then you're saying, I see many people who live a very fragmented life. It's as if they have two different lives, one in front of the cameras of the world and another with themselves. And that's the best case scenario, because I see people who have more than two lives in which they are so fragmented.
Yeah.
And you talk to them and they're like, I don't know. I want to be this person, but there's something else pushing me to those. It's like almost irresistible, like a conditioning, which you can't understand until you consider that there has been another life where you experience many other things, and the conditionings of the past, traumas, as you said, they will come back to you so you can make a decision. So that's why the therapist, in your case, you come to facilitate this deep awareness, but the person has to work on it. That's why these readings not necessarily come very effectively, because it didn't run through the person, right?
Exactly. It has to emanate from you in some way, and the desire to heal. I think that's true in any therapy. Obviously, people do therapy because they get to the point when their lives are not working and they feel fragmented, or they feel depressed or anxious. So there are many different ways to get there.
And have you seen cases in which people, in case of adults, they get information from their previous life, they know it was bad, that there is a morbid tendency to hold on to that? I'll give a silly example, which is so common in people's minds. Oh, I was a king, I was a queen or a princess, and then, but I was a bad person. But at the same time, I feel proud of it, like I was a king and I was a queen, blah, blah, blah. And they are morbidly attached to it. Like they don't want to let go. They still want to continue the patterns, knowing that it doesn't give them anything good or make them good. Have you seen patterns like this?
Well,
morbid attachment somewhat.
Morbid attachments. I'm trying to think of an example I can give you. Well, I see morbid attachments to being victims more than anything. But it's interesting because past life therapy is very popular in the Netherlands. And I know in Brazil, there are a lot of well-trained therapists there too. It seems to be those two stand out in my mind, the Netherlands and Brazil.
Wow.
And I talked to some of my colleagues in the Netherlands, and we all agree that it's easy to tap into lies of victimization. That's our fallback. It's not my fault. I'm victimized, but, in a lot of cases, people are victimized. I'm not diminishing that. But in the past life frame, it's important to see those lives when we've also been perpetrators, because there's always that balance going on. If we've had multiple past lives, we've done everything. It's energy. So it's balancing energy, and it's not, karma is totally, in my opinion, totally misunderstood in the West. It's not an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Hammurabi's code, where, you do, if you killed someone in your past life, you're going to be killed in this life. That is way too simplistic and wrong.
Exactly.
We have multiple chances, and that's the beauty of it too. And there was this metaphor I read about from some rabbi who said, I think he was talking to the Dalai Lama about Jewish belief in reincarnation and the Kabbalah, the Kabbalists, that the purposes of all these incarnations is to weave this garment of light. And in some lives, we weave more threads in some lives, they unravel. It's not just a straight trajectory necessarily. We have experiences that we need to understand what it is to be human. So I just thought of a case that I talk about, which is really interesting. I don't know whether it's really answering what we're talking about, but one woman came to me who was terribly victimized sexually by family members, and nice upper class Connecticut home, all appearances, everything was fine. No, it was horrible. And she had done a lot of therapy, and she came to me, and her question was, why did she suffer so? So when we went through the process, I took her history and we started the regression. Immediately, she saw herself as an SS officer in World War II. And she was going around, ordering mass killings as a male, ordering mass killings. But at one point, he woke up and he said, what I'm doing is wrong. I deserve to be punished for what I've done. And he did something purposely to make them kill him, to shoot him. You just can't walk away from something like that. So he purposely did something that caused his death.
Yes.
But his last thoughts before he died were, I deserve to be punished for what I've done. And I remember with the feeling in the room when you could just feel this energy lifting. It was palpable. Sometimes this transmutation of energy is palpable. And it was as if this huge weight had been lifted from her. As to why. But my feeling is, from working with literally thousands of people over 30 years, we are our own judges and juries. We're part of this creative process as to what we need when we incarnate. And the last thoughts before the moment of death are powerful. That's why so many kids come back remembering their deaths. Mm-hmm. That leaves a very strong imprint on the soul. So it's a much more creative process than we think. Even if we've done something horrible, I think of someone who, as a child, was almost sadistic, and talked about cutting a lot, and oh boy, this is getting a little involved, but he saw himself as one of these slasher, sword-wielding, beyond soldier, more than, just a killer. And your image just went off. There you go. I'm sorry. Disorienting. Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah, I know. He saw himself as this slasher in regression therapy. And in this life, he chose to be a surgeon, wielding his knife to heal.
Wow.
So it doesn't necessarily follow like he had to be killed brutally in this life. He had some epiphany, in the afterlife with his guides or with God, or you can use the sword, the knife, for healing this time.
So we are talking about self-realization and forgiveness.
Yes. Self-forgiveness is tough at times. Or forgiving others, in my case, those who killed me in my last life and took everything from me. That's been a real interesting journey.
Yeah, I've heard some spirit scholars saying the other week that the ultimate goal for us on earth is love, but if we don't go through forgiveness,
right,
we won't achieve it.
That's right. And that's a tough one, especially if you have been victimized, in this life as a child. It's hard to get there.
Yeah.
But if you can have this other perspective, this broader perspective, I think it helps. When you see that, oh, now I understand where I'm coming from. and what I wanted to learn in this life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
It's not an easy, it's not easy.
but it's good to know we need help. Sometimes some people call and say, I'm experiencing this. Why don't you try some therapy? I know it's not any therapist, but you need skillful people in your life to help you digest
Yeah.
those emotions, and accept the new setting of this reincarnation. I find, and that's one of the questions that we have for you, is that, isn't it true that if we don't accept, and acceptance in the sense of really appreciating the new proposal of this reincarnation, we won't fulfill what we have to fulfill in this life?
Yeah, and I think if circumstances are very extreme, you may not in one life.
Yes, yes.
When I heard someone like Elie Wiesel, the author, was he a Nobel Prize winner? I don't remember. Talking about his experiences in the Holocaust, for example. How do you get to a level of forgiveness when you watch your whole family killed? It's some people can do it, not everyone can do it in one life. I feel it's possible, but not everybody can.
Yeah.
And that's why we have multiple experiences. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd rather err on the side of optimism and say, yes, we can make great strides in any life.
Yes. Some people, Carol, they say that, oh, it's hard. But by forgiving, you are not telling anyone or acknowledging anyone that what they've done is right. But we're saying, I want to be free.
Yeah.
I want to be free because it could be worse if it were me, the perpetrator, the one doing this. So thank God I'm on the other side and I'm not the one causing it. And you want to be free. You want to be light within yourself, like you said, of your clients. Like when you really make sense of it all and you come to that peaceful state of mind, instead of carrying that and holding that grudge that can deteriorate your physical health.
I totally agree with you, Vanessa.
Right? We
Yeah,
visit nursing homes here and we see how many people reach their elderly years, and you talk to them. The hardest thing is to forgive. Sometimes they have a hard time forgiving themselves or forgiving others. But that's the prime time of your life when you don't need, when society's not pressuring you anymore,
Yeah.
not expecting much, but you have your days to live in a very lightly manner, really forgiving and forget. So I think it's a learning process, right?
It is. And I've seen elderly people change naturally, like you're saying, the people in the nursing home,
Yeah.
Okay, so my daughter mistreated me, or my son, or somebody, or my ex-husband, but they're finally at peace with it. Maybe, they soften
They soften.
sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Or they can remain bitter. And, I don't know what consequence it's going to have in a future life, but it probably have some consequence where, they just have to learn.
And Carol, since you have done such an immense work bringing that awareness in the US, in the Western society, about the importance of just accepting the facts of life as they are, the spontaneous memories, would you say that we will one day bring this content to schools?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I think realistically, it's going to take more efforts from people like you, where you're gathering critical mass here, amongst the spiritist community and outreach. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years, or if I'm going to be here to witness it. But I think, yes, we have to change the mass consciousness. That's the only way that things are really going to change. And, it's things like the pandemic and climate change. It's like, wake up, everybody.
Yes. A new generation is coming along.
And they're amazing.
Yes.
And like I'm sure Virginia is amazing. She has you two as parents, and she came to the right family for her. But I see it with the young people I work with, in their 20s, their early 30s, and they're amazing. And I'm not in touch with a lot of little kids anymore, like you are. My time has passed into another realm, but they are amazing. You look at some of these children now, and they know. They know. So we have to support them in their knowing.
Yes.
We have to nurture them, tend to them and listen to them.
And on the other hand, for those adults who are here with us, there's always the inner child as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
To be nurtured to and listen to. And so I know we don't want to finish. We want more of you, Carol.
Well, I should come back and do a program on children's past lives. I thought that we were going to do that today, but it's okay. I never expected this, but this is a good direction to go in.
Yes, I agree. It would be phenomenal. People would learn so much. It would be so therapeutic as well. And would like to hear from you, like one last comment that you can share with us that can really bring comfort and hope to people who are out there listening to us, because that's our focus at Kardec Radio. It's not only information and instruction, but really bringing a level of comfort and consolation and new hope to people's hearts so we can progress. What would you like to share?
I'd like to share that I know we are really souls having these different experiences. And if we can understand that, it would be easier on ourselves, that there's so much more to us than where we were born, who our parents were, our culture, the conditioning. These are just circumstances of this birth, but we're so much more than that. And we can get in touch with that divine aspect of our natures too, through prayer, meditation, so many ways. And it's comforting for me to know, okay, when I die, it's just another phase. Death is not the end.
No, it's not the end. It's not the end at all.
And there is a benevolent intelligence, God, call it what you will, that's running the show. And we're just part of this creation.
Yeah. And we are figuring out as we live, time and again. Right?
Yeah. Well, and I want to thank you for always being so supportive, Vanessa.
You're so welcome.
And, all the good work you're doing. And I know you do a lot of different things. And I appreciate what you do.
No, thank you. We all appreciate. We have here so many people sharing how they appreciate you being here with us. And you sharing this healing, giving these healing tools to people at a time that is so critical on Earth and maybe defining the next decades to come in our lives. So thank you so much. And we heard you and we agree we need to do more. So let's talk about it.
Okay.
Right?
I'd love to. Yeah, we can talk about the children's memories.
Yes.
And the healing, get more specific. I loved kind of how we veered off into it.
Yes.
Yeah. Make it personal for the adults listening. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so important. And it feels good, Carol. It feels good to have you here. We feel like we're all treated. Thank you.
More than ever.
Thank you so much. And we want to say to those who are here, if they want to talk to you, just go to carolbowman.com. there's a contact tab. You can contact her very easily. And stay tuned because Kardec Radio will bring you more. Thank God. And thanks to Carol as well.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you, Carol.
welcome.
Thanks to Steve as well for helping us.
Oh, yes. He
Connections.
saved the day for me.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we want to wish you a beautiful beginning of this year, hopefully with lots more here and in your channel, right?
Yes.
Carol Bowman.
And I want to thank the Spiritist community too.
You're welcome.
It's so nice to be understood.
Yeah. It feels good, right?
It feels really good because, as I said, I've been getting all this pushback. And it's like, oh, Vanessa, this is a blessing that you called.
They know it all.
Yeah.
They know it all.
Yeah.
But it's good to have you here. We also feel like this resonates with us. And as people are saying here, our friend Tony Torres, beautiful lesson. Thank you. Lumiere from Paris and Andrea Conte. We have so many friends here with us from different parts of the world who have been sharing their appreciation and their stories as well. So if anybody has any other question, also feel free to write to us at kardecradio@gmail.com, where we are always listening to you and doing our best to bring you more. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Vanessa.
A kiss and a hug.
Yeah, virtual hug.
Yes. Until next time, Carol. Thank you. Thank you, friends.